So I'm going to make the assumption that for the moment, I'm playing someone who I have the opportunity to pretend I'm as capable as Nancy Yeager and introduce our various speakers and presenters. Or was that something you were expecting you were taking on, Sandy?
Well, why don't you introduce the next, and I'll see if I can find Nancy, see what's going on.
All is good.
Okay.
So it is my pleasure to introduce a friend of mine, someone I truly enjoy both as a person, but also as someone who is able to share ideas with direct, fun, engaging conversations that really are positive and empowering. And she exemplifies our positive philosophy on blindness and our positive attitudes. My friend is Linda Melendez, the president of the National Federation of the Blind of New Jersey. And it is my pleasure that Linda has agreed to come and join us today and talk to us this afternoon. If we could unmic or unmute Linda and welcome her to the virtual stage, I bring you Linda Melendez.
Greetings from Jersey. Thank you, Tracy, and the NFB of Virginia. Just a mic check to make sure everyone can hear me.
We can hear you.
Great, thank you so much. So I am Linda Melendez. This November will make my 1-year anniversary as the newly elected president of the NFB of New Jersey. So I just wanted to give a brief input on myself because I think that plays into philosophy. So my mom was a single mom in 1967, which back then was not common, and there were little to no services available to women who were alone. So my mom was a pioneer, in my opinion, in the women's rights movement. I grew up in Brooklyn, as you can tell from my accent. I grew up below the poverty level from a single mom. I never fit in with the intersecting communities that I belong to. I'm a Caucasian and Latin, and unfortunately, I just never found my place within my communities. All my life, I could only see from one eye, and in 1998, I began to lose the remaining eyesight in my one other eye. I never say I've lost my vision because I've always had vision. To me, vision means goals, dreams, and aspirations. I lost my remaining eyesight. My son was going to be 5 years old when I began to lose the rest of my eyesight, and we had recently moved from Brooklyn to very rural Bud Lake, New Jersey. Let's see. I attended my first state convention for New Jersey the year that I went blind, which was 1998, and I took my son the following year because he thought at the age of 6, when your mom goes blind, then they die. So it was very important for me to get him around positive blind individuals. And I had experienced that the year before. Unfortunately, I did not get involved in the Federation. However, 16 years later, my son urged me to get back involved with the NFBNJ because he had such a positive experience as a 6-year-old. So I joined in 2015, and last year I became president. So what is philosophy? So I was thinking about that. So I said, let me look online and get the definition. So quite literally, the term philosophy means love of wisdom. In a broad sense, philosophy is an activity people undertake when they seek to understand fundamental truths about themselves, the world the world in which they live in, and their relationships to the world and to each other. I was thinking, how do we develop, how does our philosophy develop? So first, it develops by our parents when we're young. Then our family has some input to it, friends, our school, religious organizations, society, work, and our partners and spouses. And then I'm thinking, well, does philosophy change over time? Why and how? And I believe it does as we get older, as we make new friends, our employments, as we change jobs, and more importantly, as we learn more about ourselves. So my philosophy has always been, because of the things that I've gone through, I consider myself always having to claw my way out of the paper bag of life. And that has always led me to believe that there is nothing I can't do, and I can do whatever I put my mind to. When my son was younger, growing up, and he would say to me, "Mom, I can't do this," my words to him were, "Logan, don't tell me what you can't do. Show me what you can do. Make like Nike and just do it." And I believe I began this philosophy when my mom left my father because she was in an abusive relationship, and she wanted to teach her daughters that there was more to life than being abused and to stand up for yourself. So my philosophy was shaped by my single mom. Hold on a second, I'm sorry. She taught me to never be a doormat, to always speak up for myself and give what I want back to others. It was also shaped by my environment, always standing up for myself, even when I was afraid, fight back, and yes, back in the 70s, sometimes that meant with my hands, although I'm not proud to say that. It was shaped by my family, friends, and society and work. It was also shaped by my life's experiences. I was bullied as a child because I stuttered. I had red hair, freckles, and I didn't speak up for myself until I stopped stuttering at the age of 17 years old. I always wanted to work to rise up in society. Since I had been living on the lower end of poverty, I always wanted to make myself accomplished. So it was never an option for me to not get or do what I needed to do to make myself better. I was also shaped because I was in abusive relationships. So I would never allow myself to be in that again. Another event that shaped my life was surviving 9/11, overcoming my stuttering. When I lost my remaining eyesight, I was a hot mess, but decided for my son's sake not to give up on me or us. So that meant fighting back, even if it wasn't for myself. When my mom died in 2013, my philosophy or my strength was all but gone. And my son came to me and he said, "Mom, I need my strong mom back. I want Linda back. I don't know who this person is, but help find her." So my son was able to help shape my continuing philosophy and growing philosophy. So when I came to the NFB, I was told, "Linda, you have the Federation way." And I didn't know what that meant. And I'm thinking, well, what does that mean? And come to find out that in the Federation, we believe that low expectations are not what should stop us. We are not defined by our characteristics of being blind. And so I'm thinking, well, I never let any of my other characteristics or situations that I was put in stop me from being who I wanted to be. I never let anything just tell me what I can and cannot do. I always decided what I wanted to do and found a way to get it done. Like I would tell my son, make like Nike, Logan, and just do it. So now it's time for Linda to suck it up, buttercup, make like Nike, and get it done, Linda. Do what needs to be done in life. So as I grew up, I realized that I had to take a bit of every part of my world and make my own philosophy, make it mine, own it. So that meant sometimes cutting people or groups out of my life. It meant looking for the right people to put in my life, such as non-toxic individuals. It meant helping people be stronger because when I help them, they help me to be stronger. So, so what is your philosophy? And so to help us with that, Tracy, I believe we wanted to play a tape.
A Man
Hello?
Who Had No Eyes by McKinley Cantor. A beggar was coming down the avenue just as Mr. Parsons emerged from his hotel. He was a blind beggar, carrying the traditional battered cane and thumping his way before him with a cautious, half-furtive effort of the sightless. He was a shaggy, thick-necked fellow. His coat was greasy about the lapels and pockets, and his hand splayed over the cane's crook with a futile sort of clinging. He wore a black pouch slung over his shoulder. Apparently he had something to sell. The air was rich with spring. The sun was warm and yellowed on the asphalt. Mr. Parsons, standing there in front of his hotel and noting the clack-clack approach of the sightless man, felt a sudden and foolish sort of pity for all blind creatures. And, thought Mr. Parsons, he was very glad to be alive. A few years ago he had been little more than a skilled laborer. Now he was successful, respected, admired. Insurance, and he had done it alone, unaided, struggling beneath handicaps. And he was still young. The blue air of spring, fresh from its memories of windy cools and lush shrubbery, could thrill him with eagerness. He took a step forward, just as the tap-tapping blind man passed him by. Suddenly the shabby fellow turned. "Listen, Governor, just a minute of your time." Mr. Parsons said, "It's late. I have an appointment. Do you want me to give you something?" "I ain't no beggar, Governor. You bet I ain't. I got a handy little article here." He fumbled until he could press a small object into Mr. Parsons' hand. "That I sell. $1. Best cigarette lighter made." Mr. Parsons stood there, somewhat annoyed and embarrassed. He was a handsome figure with his immaculate gray suit and gray hat and Malacca stick. Of course, the man with the cigarette lighters could not see him. "But I don't smoke," he said. "Listen, I bet you know plenty of people who smoke. Nice little present," wheedled the man. "And, mister, you wouldn't mind helping a poor guy out." He clung to Mr. Parsons' sleeve. Mr. Parsons sighed and felt in his vest pocket. He brought out $2 half-dollars and pressed them into the man's hand. "Certainly, I'll help you out. As you say, I can give it to someone. Maybe the elevator boy would—" He hesitated, not wishing to be boorish and inquisitive even with a blind peddler. "Have you lost your sight entirely?" The shabby man pocketed the $2 half-dollars. 14 years, Governor." Then he added with an insane sort of pride, "Westbury, sir. I was one of 'em." "Westbury," repeated Mr. Parsons. "Ah, yes, the chemical explosion. The papers haven't mentioned it for years, but at the same time it was supposed to be one of the greatest disasters in—" "They've all forgot about it." The fellow shifted his feet wearily. "I tell you, Governor, a man who was in it don't forget about it. Last thing I ever saw was C-Shop going up in one grand smudge and gas pouring in all the busted windows." Mr. Parsons coughed, but the blind peddler was caught up with the train of his one dramatic reminiscence. And also he was thinking that there might be more half-dollars in Mr. Parsons' pocket. "Just think about it, Governor. There was 108 people killed, about 200 injured, and over 50 of them lost their eyes, blind as bats." He groped forward until his dirty hand rested against Mr. Parsons' coat. "I tell you, sir, there wasn't nothing worse than that in the war. If I'd been lost my eyes in the war, okay, I would have been well took care of. But I was just a workman, working for what was in it. And I got it. You're darn right I got it. While the capitalists were making their dough, they was insured. Don't worry about that. They—" "Insured," repeated his listener. "Yes, that's what I sell." "You want to know how I lost my eyes?" cried the man. "Well, here it is." His words fell with the bitter and studied drama of a story often told, and told for money. "I was there in C-Shop, last of all the folks rushing out. Out in the air there was a chance, even with buildings exploding right and left. A lot of guys made it out safe, out the door, and they got away. Just when I was about there, Crawling along between those big vats, a guy behind grabs my leg. He says, "Let me pass." Maybe he was nuts, I don't know. I try to forgive him in my heart, Governor, but he was bigger than me. He hauled me back and climbs right over me, tramples me into the dirt, and he gets out. And I lie there with all that poison gas pouring down on all sides of me and flame and stuff. He swallowed a studied sob and stood dumbly expectant. He could imagine the next words. "Tough luck, my man. Now I want to—" That's the story, Governor. The spring wind shrilled past them, damp and quivering. "Not quite," said Mr. Parsons. The blind peddler shivered crazily. "Not quite? What do you mean?" "That story is true," Mr. Parsons said, "except that it was the other way around." "Other way around?" He croaked uneasily. "Say, Governor—" "I was in C-shop," said Mr. Parsons. "It was the other way around. You were the fellow who hauled back on me and climbed over me. You were bigger than I was, Markwort." The blind man stood for a long time, swallowing hoarsely. He gulped. "Parsons? By God, I thought you—" And then he screamed fiendishly. "Yes, maybe so, but I'm blind. I'm blind, and you've been standing here letting me spout to you and laughing at me every minute. I'm blind." People in the street turned to stare at him. "You got away, but I'm blind. Do you hear? I'm—" "Well," said Mr. Parsons, "don't make such a row about it, Markwort. So am I."
So two people are in the same environment, and yet they come back with two different outlooks on it, and it changes their lives in different ways. And many of us, some of us have lost our eyesight early in life, at birth, later on in life, but many of us think about it the same way, and some of us think about it differently. Those of us who are in the NFB, we draw strength from each other and from our philosophy. Our philosophy is to achieve equality, opportunity, and security for the blind. Blindness is not the characteristic that defines us or our future. We live the lives that we want. We don't let others dictate what we can and cannot do or what we will and will not do. We want to change preconceived notions about blindness. We want to remove obstacles, and we have the slogan, "Nothing about us without us." We want to be involved in things. And so this philosophy helps us to draw strength in each other and for ourselves. Now, I may have been through a lot in life, and I know others on this phone call have been through just as much or even more. But what I want to get to this is that no matter what life throws our way, no one said life was fair and it was going to be easy. My son didn't ask for a blind mom, but he got one. With or without my eyesight, I was his mom, and he deserved me to do the best job at being his mom that I could do. Failure was not an option. Failing as his mom meant irreparable damage to his life that probably could not be saved. So I had to take my blindness and show him in the world that it was not going to hold me back. I was not going to be a bitter, blind person. I was going to thrive. If that meant working harder at it, then so be it. I worked harder at it. Now I'm a blind grandmother taking care of my grandson as one of his primary caregivers. Others may look at this and say, "How could you let a blind woman take care of your grandson?" Well, any grandmother loves their grandchild, whether they have eyesight or not. And that should not be the factor in deciding whether or not I can provide for him. So I just wanted to say that philosophy is different, and I wanted to see if maybe one or two of you in the audience would like to share something about philosophy or how it has affected you or how the NFB has helped you groom and shape your philosophy. So if you could raise your hand, and if the moderator could unmute you, And if you could be kind as to give others an opportunity to speak in our limited time frame. Are there any hands raised?
Not yet. If you want to raise your hand, it's *9 if you're on a phone and Alt-Y if you're on a computer. It's in the More section if you are on a phone using the Zoom app.
And even if you're struggling with philosophy, we want to hear that, because philosophy doesn't happen overnight.
Okay, we have a question from, Diane.
Yes, Diane.
Hello, this is Diane.
Yes, Diane.
First, I wanted to share a little bit about my philosophy before and then after joining the NFB. I just had enough vision in my early years, 20s, and even 30s, that I thought that I could fake being sighted, because I did not find that anybody would really take me seriously in my goals if they knew I was blind. And it was so silly because, of course, people knew I was blind, and I wasn't getting away with my past or my faking. So when I met people in NFB, and they showed me that, it's okay, and it was liberating. Once I started using a cane and acknowledging my vision loss, honestly, my life got easier because people realized I was going blind. I wasn't stuck up. In fact, I'm pretty friendly. That they realized, okay, she couldn't see me. That's why she didn't wave or whatever. And also, I couldn't read print, and so I had to listen very carefully. But it was very difficult, and my life could have been, so much easier if I had just acknowledged that I'm blind and learned the techniques earlier in life. But nonetheless, I'm so grateful that I did find the NFB, and just knowing that it's okay and you can learn new ways of doing stuff, and your life will be liberated.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Diane. And you're right, it is liberating. I, too, was going to fake it in the sighted world until my son helped me adapt to my cane. So we were going on a vacation, and I was going to fake it in Florida, and I was only blind for 6 months, and I was taking lessons to use the cane. In my first lesson, I was crying, and I said to myself, I'm never going to use this white cane again. And it came time for my son to do homework, and he heard the instructor say, practice, Linda, I'll be back next week. And I said, Logan, do your homework. And he said, I will if you do your homework. I said, what homework? I don't have homework. I don't go to school. He said, oh, yes, Mom, I heard your teacher tell you to practice with that white cane. And I was crying, and I said to myself, okay. He said, I like that white cane, Mom. And I said, why? He said, because I know where you are, and I'll let other people know you don't see well. And here he is, 5.5 years old, almost 6 years old, and he understood the purpose and the goal of the white service cane, and I did not. And I was the adult in this relationship. And since then, my white cane has become my friend, and I decided not to fake it anymore. So you helped me to inspire to tell that story, Diane, so thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yes, Deborah Jackson has her hand raised. Deborah, I've asked you to unmute.
Yes, Deborah. Share with us, please. Deborah, you're still muted if you're talking.
Have I unmuted?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, now you're unmuted. Welcome, Deborah. Thank you for sharing
Hello,
with us.
everybody. Hello. It's a pleasure to listen and be in this meeting with you guys. I am with the Greater Williamsburg chapter here in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I always when I get to where I am kind of gearing to that being unaccepted or being getting at a low point, I'm vision impaired. I think about when I went to Texas with the National Federation of the Blind for the first time. And I tell you, to see with the vision that I do have, to see totally blind people going about, I mean, white canes everywhere, and everybody is just getting to where they needed to go. And the speakers are phenomenal speakers. And I, at that point, I was at a really, really low point that, you know, what do I do now? Where do I go from here? But NFB inspired me to go to paralegal. I took paralegal and graduated in 2015, Thomas Nelson. But it just gave me that umption to live that life that I want to live. And my thing was empowering people with information. I was able to introduce people. I worked at a nonprofit organization for 16 years, and I just knew that I could do more. And by even now, when I go to the president's statements and hearing Tracy Safranco and even those in my chapter, I tell you, I am so blessed to be able to be encouraged and take that encouragement and put it to use to say, okay, I may be a paralegal, I may be unemployed right now, but I can do stuff for people that, you know, and I do. I research. I tell them this is what you take to a lawyer, and you know, go from there. You know, but I'm so happy to be a part of NFB. I've been a silent partner for quite some time, and then the pandemic came along. But you know, I always kept up with the Tracy and with the president of the Virginia area. I tell you, I am just overwhelmed to know and to be a part of a working organism that says you can be and you can do what you need to do. I'm very thankful for being in the support group back in Williamsburg, Greater Williamsburg chapter. And I tell you, it's just awesome. I love it. I'm so glad. The pandemic did a little damper on my spirits for a minute, but I began to listen and to be involved, and now I'm back with them, and I'm happy to do that. So thank you guys.
Well, we're glad that you're back.
Yes, and thank all of you for your encouragement.
Thank you so much. And so when I listen to our previous comments, it says the NFB. And the NFB really is a philosophy. It's the love of wisdom. And as we grow older and we involve ourselves with more positive things, our wisdom and our philosophy grows and we become stronger. And so I'm proud to say that I was highlighted in a blog that says, Finding My Way Home to the Federation. And I have never felt so accomplished and empowered as I do as a Federationist. Not because I'm the president of New Jersey, because I am a member of the oldest, largest, strongest, and most influential blindness organization in the world. I have a say in what we will accept and what we will not accept. And if it had not been for the philosophy of Dr. Tenbrook, we would not be here. We would not have accomplished all that we have accomplished. And it's up to us moving forward to keep accomplishing things so future generations that will never ever know us will have an easier time at being accepted into the world, of being mainstreamed, of not having to fight for equality, opportunity, and security. When that day comes, I will rejoice, whether I'm here on earth or somewhere else, because I know that all of us had a part in shaping our philosophy and building the philosophy of the National Federation of the Blind. So I just want to close with some closing remarks. I want all of us to be a participant in our lives and not a spectator. And think about that. Are you fully engaging yourself in life, or are you sitting on the sidelines and letting life just pass you by? I want us to set goals and bucket lists, because we're blind doesn't mean we don't have goals, dreams, and aspirations. It doesn't mean we can't have a bucket list. I have different bucket lists. I have a professional bucket list, a personal bucket list. I even have like an entertainment bucket list, who I want to see in concert, because I may not have wanted to go most of my life because I couldn't see them. I also want to tell you that the sky is the limit, and you are stronger than you think you are. Let nothing or no one hold you back. If there are people in your lives who do not see you for the worth and the value that you are, then you may need to consider, why are they in my life? If they're not empowering me, if they're holding me back, if they're stopping me from being accomplished, then I need to think, what value do they offer me in my life? And I know that's a harsh statement, but I am a Brooklyn girl, and I'm in Jersey right now, and I know up in the North we're a little bit more harsh with what we say, and I don't mean anybody any disrespect, but this is my life. Welcome to it. Thank you, Tracy, for giving me the opportunity to speak to the Virginia affiliate today. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Linda, that was powerful and really quite awesome. Thank you very much for sharing these ideas. Thank you to our participants in the discussion, and we're welcoming that participation in the discussion.